My baby boy is turning 8 this week. When we started our trilingual journey 8 years ago, we were full of hopes and excitement, but we had no idea what hurdles we would hit along the way, no idea about the ups and downs the journey would bring. Looking back, there are so many things I wish I had known at the beginning. By the end of this video, you know some of the main mistakes to avoid and some of the mindset shifts you should make in order to have a smoother and, crucially, happier journey. If you're new to my channel, welcome! I'm a UK-based mum raising my 2 kids to be trilingual in Russian, Chinese and English. In this video, I'll share with you the top 5 things I wish I knew when we began our trilingual journey 8 years ago. These are by no means the only things on our list, but I've picked the top 5 things to share with you all and offer tips on how to implement these insights in real life. If you are expecting a baby now or have a new baby, congratulations. I'm so happy for your family and I wish you all the best. Trust me, your child will grow up so fast. It truly feels like yesterday when I held my baby boy for the first time after a difficult 2-day labor and an emergency C-section. It's so hard to believe it's been 8 years since he was born and 8 years since we embarked on this trilingual journey. I really hope our insights will be of value to other parents out there who have amazing hopes for the little baby. Why listen to another stranger on the internet? I'm the author of Bilingual and Trilingual Parenting 101, which has sold thousands of copies on Amazon. Everything I do, including this channel and my website, is all about empowering parents out there who want to raise their children to speak multiple languages. I have a degree from Cambridge University and I'm a qualified translator and language instructor. I'm also a member of the Chartered Institute of Linguists. In short, I'm absolutely passionate about languages and empowering parents to raise multilingual kids. After watching this video, I encourage you to download my free family language planner, which will help you formulate a plan for your family. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's get to the first thing I wish I knew when we began this journey. So we found out we were expecting our first child in January 2016. Having struggled before, we dared not get our hopes up. But when I first heard my baby's heartbeat during a 6-week scan, going boom, 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 boom like this, I fell in love with him on the spot. Our son was a much wanted child, and without going into too much detail, it took us a while to get there. So we were really overjoyed to be welcoming our baby into the world, and we're soon swept up in the world of baby shopping, baby name research, all that fun stuff when you're expecting your first child. The whole raising a trilingual child thing was, quite frankly, a bit of an afterthought. We just kind of assumed, I guess, that sure, yeah, we would raise our child to be trilingual. He or she would surely just grow up to speak our languages anyway, right? That's just the norm, right? If your mummy speaks to you in language A and your daddy speaks to you in language B and everyone else around you speaks to you in language C, you effortlessly, naturally, maybe even automatically speak all 3 languages, right? It's as simple as ABC. 8 years later, I wish I knew that it wasn't quite as simple as that. One thing that surprised us, and surprises lots of parents in our situation, is that being bilingual or trilingual does not happen automatically, even with the best intentions. It can, but often it doesn't. If you are like us, raising your child to speak more than one language in a country with a very strong dominant language, and where there are very few people who are actually bilingual, we live in the UK and English is the only majority language and dominant language where we live. You will very likely face significant challenges and hurdles in achieving your goal. It will at times feel like a constant uphill struggle. You may not have many other multilingual families around you to look up to as role models or sources of motivation. You will be frustrated that no matter what you do, your child just prefers to speak the majority language. If my husband and I had known this 8 years ago, we might have prepared ourselves better and set more realistic expectations. Remember, do not assume that being bilingual or trilingual will just happen automatically and require no effort on your part. Otherwise, you'll be in for quite a shock. Now, let's get on to the second thing I wish I knew when we first got started. Before we dive in, I want you to imagine two scenarios. It may not sound super relevant to our topic right now, but bear with me. Imagine Amy and Betty, two women wanting to lose 5 kilos in 6 months. A challenging but not impossible goal. Amy is a very logical thinker who likes to have a plan. She dives into the research on weight loss, the mechanics of calorie deficit and nutrition and all that stuff. She works out the amount of calories she needs to consume every day and the exercise that goes along with it, putting everything together into an actionable plan. Buys cookbooks and creates a meal plan for her 6-month weight loss program. She then follows this plan consistently. Maybe not perfectly, but she tries to stick to her plan as much as possible. Then picture Betty. She thinks, okay, to lose 5 kilos in 6 months, I just need to eat less and move more, right? She has the vague notion that if you eat fewer calories and do more exercise, you'll shift the weight. So she wakes up on Monday morning, declaring, today's the day, with great enthusiasm. She skips breakfast, grabs a kale smoothie for lunch. Then by 3 p.m, she thinks, oh gosh, I'm starving. She then nibbles on a chocolate bar, promising herself it's just a little treat, before gobbling up the entire bar. By the time the evening rolls around, she's fed up and just goes, oh, screw this, I'll just eat a pizza. I'm starving. The gym? Oh, I'll start tomorrow. Maybe, maybe not. Remember, she doesn't actually have a plan. So, who do you think will have a better chance of losing those 5 kilos in 6 months? Amy or Betty? This very basic thought experiment, if you can call it that, brings me to the second most important thing I wish I knew when starting our journey. The importance of having a plan. My husband and I were a bit like Betty. We thought, oh, we'll just speak to our child in Russian and Chinese, sometimes, somehow, and it will all work itself out. Let's just say that this plan, or lack thereof, did not work out so well for us at the beginning. At the time, I knew nothing about the different strategies you can take, things like one parent, one language, majority language at home, etc. We did zero research, had no idea how we were going to implement a trilingual family routine or any of that stuff on a strategic or tactical level. In fact, we even switched languages when my son turned 2. You can find out more about that in my video where I talk about our language dilemmas. And this U-turn definitely made things more complicated for us for a while. And our lack of planning at the beginning might partly explain why, 8 years later, we still haven't quite agreed on which language we should use when all 4 of us are together, which is, let's face it, totally ridiculous. Looking back, I really wish I had done a bit more research into the topic and come up with a plan, even if we didn't follow it religiously, which is why I have written a book helping bilingual and trilingual parents and created a free family language planner template that you can download using the link in the description box below. The template is absolutely free. I highly recommend you download it, print it out, fill it in and stick it on your fridge. It will serve as a useful guide. You can also check out my book, which is not free, but contains all the info you need to begin your bilingual or trilingual journey in an easy to digest package. It also includes a link to a free cheat sheet that you can stick to your fridge alongside that planner as a handy reference. Okay, enough spiel. But seriously, it doesn't matter whether you use my resources or any other resources, or even if you use no resources. Just sit down with your partner and talk about how you intend to raise your child to speak more than one language. Which strategy will you use? Which parent will use which language? At what age will you introduce each of the languages? What about grandparents? Write all these things down so you have something like a game plan. Trust me, taking this action will go a long way in making your journey easier. Now, let's move on to the third thing I wish I knew 8 years ago. Remember the story about Amy and Betty, 2 women trying to lose 5 kilos in 6 months? I want to go back to that analogy for a minute. I know some of you might be wondering, what on earth has raising bilingual children got to do with going on a diet? Well, surprisingly, the 2 things have one big thing in common, in my opinion. Just like losing weight, raising a bilingual or trilingual child is simple but not easy. Just like losing weight, raising a bilingual or trilingual child boils down to a very simple fundamental principle. In the case of weight loss, it is the thermodynamic principle of calories in, calories out, while in the case of raising a bilingual child, it's all about exposure to the target language and creating a need to speak the target language. In both cases, there are tons of nuances, of course. 100 calories from an apple are not the same as 100 calories from a Snickers bar, or more like half a Snickers bar, really. Similarly, 100 minutes of conversation in a target language with mummy or daddy is not the same as 100 minutes of watching a cartoon in the target language on TV. The list of nuances goes on, but nevertheless, the underlying fundamental principle remains unchanged and is simple in nature. I really believe that this seemingly obvious fact is overlooked by many parents and is one of the reasons why many parents struggle, including us. When we started out 8 years ago, we didn't know that a child's ability to speak the target language ultimately depends on exposure to the target language and the need to speak the language. I actually first read about this concept in Adam Beck's brilliant book, Maximize Your Child's Bilingual Ability, Ideas and Inspiration for Even Greater Success and Joy, Raising Bilingual Kids. I highly recommend this book if you're raising a bilingual child. It's not sponsored. The book is my competitor, but I'm still recommending it. But anyway, essentially, you need to satisfy both conditions, exposure and needs. And if you can do both consistently, fluency will inevitably follow in the vast majority of cases. So we didn't understand the simple part of the simple, not easy equation. We also had no idea about the not easy part of the simple and not easy equation. Sorry, does that even make sense? And this is closely related to the previous point I made about not realizing that bilingual ability doesn't happen automatically. We thought it would be easy. It would happen naturally or automatically. But 8 years later, having gone through this process ourselves and witnessed dozens of families in our circle of friends and acquaintances go through the same struggles, and so on, I can 100% tell you that raising a bilingual or trilingual child in a monolingual country like the UK or the US is far from easy. In fact, it's bloody hard. I had no idea how committed you have to be as a parent to make this work. Looking at people around us, many parents gradually give up on the whole bilingual, trilingual thing as their child starts school and develops a preference for the majority language. Many parents find it simply too hard to sustain all these efforts over the long term. You have to commit to being very disciplined about using the target language with your child most of the time. You'll have to overcome a bunch of hurdles as your child progresses through different stages. In the toddler years, you might worry that the speech is somewhat behind other children who only speak English. When they start nursery or school, you have to fight against the tide of English taking over. As they get older, they'll have more of a will of their own and might push back against speaking the home language. You can see why many parents give up, right? We were super close to giving up too, ourselves. In another video, I talk about our journey of helping our son transition from speaking one language to speaking three in 3 months, just when we were on the verge of giving up. So check it out if you want to find out more. Look, I'm not saying all this to put you off if you're beginning this journey. I want to do the exact opposite. Firstly, while it's hard, it's not impossible. Lots of parents do manage to raise their children to speak more than one language, even under very unfavorable conditions. So I don't want you to think that it's not worth trying because it's going to be hard. Secondly, even if it is hard, the rewards are so worth it. I've made a video about the main benefits of being bilingual and another video about the cognitive benefits of bilingualism. But if you're watching this video, chances are you already know how enriching being bilingual or trilingual is for anyone, whether it's a child or an adult. I'm sharing this insight so that you know what to expect from the start. I certainly wish I knew how challenging it would be so I could be a bit more mentally prepared. But then I don't know, maybe not. Maybe if I knew how hard it was going to be, I wouldn't have bothered in the first place. I don't know. Well, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but anyway. Now let's dive into the fourth thing I wish I knew at the beginning of our journey. Actually, I didn't know this even a year ago. I only came to this particular realization at the beginning of 2024 after reading Ali Abdaal's incredible book, Feel Good Productivity. What on earth has productivity got to do with raising trilingual kids? Hear me out. The key concept of the book is that finding joy and fun in a task, a project, or even a career is in fact the key to success and greater life satisfaction. This idea profoundly changed the way I approach my work, my life, and how I raise our kids to be trilingual. Until then, to be honest, I viewed this whole trilingual thing as a bit of a grind, something we had to do for our kids' benefit. This was especially true regarding reading and writing. We've had a routine in place for many years now, but until I read Ali's book, I always sort of dreaded each session as another work task or a chore to get through. To an extent, I blame my upbringing. I grew up in Hong Kong where the pressure to study and perform was insane, and at no point in my childhood did I think that studying was not meant to be a total grind. But after reading Ali's book, I began to approach this process differently. I let go of a lot of the expectations and pressure I put on myself and the kids. Like, hey, so what if they don't remember a word? We'll just keep going and one day it will stick. And I also incorporated a whole lot more fun into our reading and writing routine, allowing more room for fun, imaginative activities. In one of my videos, I outlined the method I developed over the years to teach my children to read and write Chinese at home myself. I'll put the link to the video in the box below. The method incorporates Ali's idea of finding joy, and seriously, this mentality shift is a game changer for us. So no matter what stage you're at on this journey, if you find yourself struggling, if you feel that this whole thing feels really hard, I get it. But I encourage you to take a step back and give yourself permission to relax a little. That's not to say to give up. No, sure, you can give up if it's not working for you, or if you think all the effort is not worth it after all. But I really encourage you to discover the joy of sharing a language with your child, to help your child discover the joy of language. It can be a wonderful bonding experience. Focus on progress, not perfection. Focus on the joy of the process, not the outcome. And trust me, you'll have a much smoother ride and experience much less frustration. This is absolutely something I wish I knew 8 years ago. Now, that brings us to the final thing I wish I knew when we began our trilingual journey 8 years ago. And it's closely linked to the previous point. Again, I have to go back to the analogy I made earlier with weight loss and by extension, living a healthy lifestyle. It's not something you do once, get it over with, and never have to think about again. No! Just like maintaining a healthy lifestyle and a healthy weight, raising a bilingual or trilingual child is a lifelong journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Sure, I did help my son transition from only speaking English to speaking 3 languages in roughly 3 months, but did our journey end there when he was 3 years old? Clearly not. Has our journey ended now that he is 8? Clearly not. Will my son's personal multilingual journey end once he turns 18 and leaves home to pursue his own life path? Probably not. Okay, I have no idea if in 10 years' time he'll even speak Russian and Chinese. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. He may choose to pursue a life path and live in a country that doesn't require any of these languages. But still, his personal multilingual journey will continue to evolve. Let me tell you a story. One of the school moms I know is originally from France. She saw me talking to my kids in Chinese and we started talking about raising bilingual kids and all that stuff. And she told me that her eldest daughter, who is now in uni, spoke French as a young child but gradually lost it throughout the early school years. A familiar story. I've made a video about language loss if you're interested. But guess what? Her daughter never actually lost touch with that side of her heritage entirely. She became passionate about languages as a teenager and eventually became fluent in French again, spending time in France with her friends and stuff. So the seeds that were planted in her early childhood did grow and blossom into something amazing, even if the exact path it took was unexpected. I'm going a bit off topic here, but basically I wish I knew that this whole thing is a lifelong journey, as cliched as that sounds. But seriously, enjoy the journey itself. If you and your child enjoy the journey, it really doesn't matter what the outcome is and what the level of fluency is. And I mean it. Find joy in the process and the journey. This is something I wish I knew 8 years ago when I first met my beautiful baby boy. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe. It means a world to me. If you're raising a bilingual or trilingual baby or are expecting your first child, watch this video where I share my top 5 tips